The first thing you need to understand about my wife Elizabeth is that she believes the world owes her something. Standing in our bedroom doorway that Tuesday evening, watching her apply lipstick with surgical precision, I realized I was about to discover exactly what she thought she deserved. "Going somewhere special?" I asked, leaning against the frame. She wore the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one that cost more than most people's rent. "Out with Monica," she said without looking at me. "You wouldn't understand. It's a networking thing." "Networking at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday?" Elizabeth turned, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Listen, David, I'm an independent woman. I don't need permission from my blue-collar husband to have a social life. Maybe if you understood ambition beyond fixing broken pipes, you'd get it." I pulled out my phone, started recording. Something in her tone triggered every alarm bell I'd learned to trust during 20 years of reading people wrong. "Keep talking," I said quietly. She laughed, that particular laugh she reserved for moments when she thought she held all the cards. "You want to know the truth? I'm tired of pretending this little suburban life is enough. I'm tired of making excuses for why I married a contractor when I could have had anyone. I'm tired of what, exactly? Of settling for less than I deserve. There are younger, more successful men out there, David, men who appreciate what I bring to the table." I kept the phone steady, watching her apply another coat of lipstick. "Anyone specific in mind?" "Maybe." Her reflection smirked at me through the mirror. "Maybe someone who drives something better than a pickup truck. Someone who understands that a woman like me needs excitement, needs passion, needs what? Needs to feel alive again. Needs to remember what it's like to be desired by someone who isn't covered in sawdust half the time." The recording kept running. 23 years of marriage, and she was finally telling me what she really thought. "So you're having an affair?" "I'm exploring my options." She turned to face me fully. "And before you get all righteous, remember that you're the one who stopped trying. You're the one who got comfortable. You're the one who forgot that keeping a woman like me requires effort." I stopped recording, saved the file, and opened my contacts. Elizabeth's mother, Patricia, was first on the list. I attached the audio and typed, "Your daughter wants to explain something to you." Send. Monica was next. Elizabeth's best friend since college, the one who'd been encouraging these networking sessions. "Thought you should hear what Elizabeth really thinks about her marriage." Send. Elizabeth's phone started buzzing immediately, then again, then continuously. "What did you do?" she demanded, grabbing for my phone. I held it out of reach. "Shared some truth? Isn't that what you wanted? To stop pretending?" Her face went white as she read the messages flooding her screen. Patricia's response came through in all caps. "Call me right now." Monica's was more diplomatic. "We need to talk." "You recorded me without permission," Elizabeth hissed. "In our bedroom, during a conversation about your affair. Pretty sure that's legal." I'd looked it up months ago when I first suspected something was wrong. Elizabeth's phone rang. Patricia's contact photo filled the screen, a professional headshot that probably cost more than my truck payment. "Answer it," I suggested. "Tell her about your networking." Instead, Elizabeth grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed, watching her rush down the hallway. "It's just getting started." After she left, I sat on our bed, my bed now, I supposed, and listened to the audio again. Her voice came through crystal clear, every word of contempt preserved in digital amber. The house felt different without her presence, like a weight had been lifted. Our daughter Sophie was at her friend's house for the night, which meant I had time to think, to plan. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'd built my contracting business from nothing, learned to read blueprints and building codes and the subtle signs that told you when a foundation was compromised. Elizabeth had always seen my work as beneath her law degree and corner office, but construction taught you things about patience, about planning, about making sure every piece was in place before you started building. My phone buzzed. A text from Monica. "David, we should talk. There might be some misunderstanding here." I typed back, "No misunderstanding. Just truth." Another buzz, this time from Patricia. "Family meeting tomorrow, 7 p.m., my house." Perfect. I'd always perform better with an audience. The next morning, Elizabeth didn't come home. I made coffee, read the news, and waited for my phone to ring. It took until 10 a.m. "David." Her voice was tight, controlled. "We need to discuss this situation like adults." "I'm listening." "What you did last night was vindictive and childish. You violated my privacy and damaged my relationships with people I care about." Your relationships were damaged the moment you decided to cheat on your husband. I just provided documentation. Silence on her end. Then, I never said I was cheating. You said you were exploring options with younger, more successful men. Most people call that cheating. I was speaking hypothetically. You twisted my words. I almost laughed. Elizabeth the lawyer, trying to argue semantics. The recording speaks for itself. Your mother certainly seemed to understand it clearly. My mother is upset because you blindsided her with something taken out of context. Then tonight's meeting should be interesting. You can provide all the context you want. Another pause. David, if you delete that recording and apologize for this stunt, we can work through this. Marriage counseling, maybe a vacation. No. No? I'm done being the understanding husband. I'm done making excuses for your behavior. And I'm definitely done pretending that 23 years of marriage means anything to you. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest, something you might want to try. She hung up. I spent the day working on a kitchen renovation across town, letting my hands stay busy while my mind processed everything. The homeowner, Mrs. Chen, brought me coffee and asked about Elizabeth. Haven't seen her at the grocery store lately. Everything all right? She's been busy with work, I said, measuring twice before cutting a piece of trim. You know how lawyers are. Mrs. Chen nodded sympathetically. My daughter's a lawyer, too. Always stressed, always working, hard on the family. Yeah, I agreed. Hard on the family. By 6 p.m., I was showered, dressed, and ready for Patricia's family meeting. I brought a folder with printed copies of bank statements I'd pulled that afternoon, interesting charges to hotels and restaurants I'd never been to, payments to places Elizabeth claimed were work expenses. Patricia's house sat in the expensive part of town, all colonial columns and manicured lawns. Elizabeth's car was already in the driveway, parked next to Monica's silver BMW. I rang the doorbell and waited. Patricia answered, her face a mask of controlled disapproval. David. Patricia, thanks for hosting. She led me to the living room where Elizabeth sat on the couch next to Monica. Both women looked up when I entered, their expressions carefully neutral. Sit down, Patricia said, gesturing to the chair across from the couch. We need to resolve this situation. I sat, placed my folder on the coffee table, and waited. Elizabeth spoke first. David, I want you to know that I've thought about what happened last night, and I understand why you might have misinterpreted. Stop, I held up a hand. Before you start rewriting history, let me play something. I pulled out my phone, found the recording, and pressed play. Elizabeth's voice filled the room, every word of contempt and admission crystal clear. When it finished, the silence stretched like a held breath. Patricia's face had gone pale. Monica stared at her hands. Well, I said finally, anyone want to discuss interpretation? Elizabeth recovered first, her lawyer training kicking in. That recording was made without my consent, which makes it inadmissible in any legal proceeding. Good thing we're not in court, I replied, opening my folder. Though if we were, I'd probably want to discuss these. I spread the bank statements across Patricia's coffee table like playing cards. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, payments to a boutique downtown that specialized in lingerie. All on dates when Elizabeth claimed to be working late or attending conferences. Monica leaned forward, squinting at the papers. David, I don't think you should... Should what? Show evidence of my wife's affair? I pointed to a particularly interesting charge. The Riverside Inn, last Thursday. Elizabeth told me she was in depositions until midnight. Elizabeth's jaw tightened. Those charges are for client meetings. Lawyers often conduct business in informal settings. Client meetings that require Victoria's secret purchases? Patricia finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Elizabeth, what is this? Mother, David is trying to make something innocent look suspicious. Yes, I've been networking more aggressively lately. Yes, that sometimes involves social activities, but I haven't broken my marriage vows. I pulled out my phone again. Funny thing about modern technology. Location services, photo metadata, social media check-ins. I scrolled to a screenshot I'd saved that morning. This is from Monica's Instagram story last Thursday night. Look familiar? The image showed Monica and another woman at a wine bar downtown, timestamp showing 9:30 p.m. The woman's face was partially obscured, but her black dress and distinctive bracelet were clearly visible. That's not... Monica started. That's not Elizabeth? I zoomed in on the bracelet, the one I'd bought for our 15th anniversary. Because that looks like Elizabeth to me, which is interesting since she was supposedly in depositions until midnight. Elizabeth stood abruptly. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated in my own mother's house. Actually, Patricia said quietly. You do? Sit down, Elizabeth. The authority in her voice surprised everyone, including Elizabeth. She sat. Patricia turned to me. David, what exactly are you accusing my daughter of? I'm not accusing anything. I'm presenting facts. Elizabeth has been lying about her whereabouts, spending money on activities she won't explain, and expressing contempt for our marriage. Draw your own conclusions. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation for all of this, Elizabeth said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. I'm waiting to hear it. Elizabeth looked at Monica, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. I've been exploring career opportunities. Some of these meetings were with potential employers. I didn't want to get David's hopes up until something concrete developed. Career opportunities that require hotel rooms? Sometimes these meetings run late. Sometimes it's easier to stay downtown rather than drive home. I nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. What companies? I'm sorry? What companies were you interviewing with? I'd love to congratulate them on their thorough interview process. Elizabeth's pause lasted too long. I can't discuss ongoing negotiations, confidentiality agreements. Of course. I turned to Monica. You've been helping with these interviews? Monica looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I've provided some advice, yes. Professional advice? Elizabeth values my opinion. I'm sure she does. I stood, gathering my papers. Well, this has been enlightening. Patricia, thank you for your time. Where are you going? Elizabeth demanded. Home. Our daughter will be back soon, and someone should be there when she arrives. David, we haven't resolved anything. I paused at the doorway. You're right, we haven't. But we will. The drive home gave me time to think about Sophie. 14 years old, smart as a whip, and caught in the middle of something she didn't understand yet. I'd have to be careful about how much she learned and when. Sophie was waiting in the driveway when I pulled up, her overnight bag slung over her shoulder. Hey, Dad, where's Mom? At Grandma Patricia's. How was Jessica's house? Good. We worked on our history project. She followed me inside, chattering about school and friends and the normal concerns of a teenager whose world hadn't imploded yet. I made dinner while she did homework at the kitchen table, both of us falling into a routine that felt surprisingly natural. Elizabeth usually worked late anyway, so her absence wasn't immediately obvious. Dad? Sophie looked up from her textbook. Are you and Mom okay? The question hit harder than I'd expected. Why do you ask? I don't know. Things have felt weird lately. Mom's been stressed, you've been quiet, and she didn't text me goodnight last night, which she always does. I sat down across from her, choosing my words carefully. Your mom and I are working through some problems, adult stuff. But whatever happens between us, it doesn't change how we feel about you. Sophie nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Are you getting divorced? I don't know yet. Maybe. Because of something Mom did? Smart kid. Too smart, sometimes. Because of things we both did. Relationships are complicated, Sophie. Sometimes people grow apart, want different things. But you still love her? I thought about that for a long moment. I love the person I thought she was. I'm not sure that person exists anymore. Sophie absorbed this with the serious consideration she brought to everything important. Okay, but you'll still be my dad, right? No matter what? Always. That's not negotiable. She smiled, the worry fading slightly. Good. Because I need help with algebra, and Mom's terrible at math. We spent the evening working through quadratic equations, and for a few hours, I could almost forget about recordings and bank statements, and the slow-motion destruction of my marriage. Elizabeth came home after Sophie went to bed, slipping in quietly like she was trying not to wake anyone. I was waiting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and a legal pad covered in notes. We need to talk, she said, hanging her coat in the closet. I'm listening. She sat across from me, her professional mask firmly in place. I spoke with a lawyer today. If you continue this harassment campaign, I'll have no choice but to pursue legal remedies. Harassment? Recording private conversations, sharing personal information without consent, making accusations you can't prove. I tapped my pen against the legal pad. What did your lawyer say about adultery and divorce proceedings? We're not getting divorced. That's not your decision to make alone anymore. Elizabeth's mask slipped slightly. David, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work on our communication. Our communication is fine. You communicated very clearly in that recording. I was frustrated. I said things I didn't mean. You meant every word. I stood, leaving my notes on the table. The question now is what we do about it. What do you want? The question hung in the air between us. What did I want? An apology, an explanation, for her to magically become the woman I'd married? I want the truth, I said finally. All of it. Who you've been seeing, how long it's been going on, what you want from this marriage. And if I tell you? Then we figure out what comes next. Elizabeth stared at the table for a long moment. When she looked up, something had shifted in her expression. His name is Jared, she said quietly. He's a real estate agent. We met at a networking event 3 months ago. Finally. The truth, or at least the beginning of it. Go on. It started as just conversation. He was charming, attentive. He made me feel appreciated. And then? And then it became more. We started meeting for coffee, then dinner, then... She trailed off. Then hotel rooms. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. Do you love him? I don't know. Maybe. He represents possibility, excitement, things I haven't felt in years. I absorbed this, surprised by how little it hurt. The betrayal was almost a relief, confirmation of what I'd suspected, an end to months of doubt and second-guessing. What do you want to happen now? I asked. I want to try to save our marriage, for Sophie's sake, if nothing else. By ending the affair? Another long pause. If that's what it takes. It's not. Elizabeth looked up, startled. What? It's not what it takes. It's too late for that. David, please. You don't get to have both, Elizabeth. You don't get to keep your marriage and your boyfriend. You don't get to maintain your reputation while destroying our family. And you definitely don't get to make me the villain in your story. I picked up my legal pad, headed for the stairs. You have until Friday to decide what you want. After that, I make the decision for both of us. What does that mean? I paused on the bottom step. It means the recording was just the beginning. Elizabeth didn't waste time. By Thursday morning, my phone was ringing with concerned calls from mutual friends, business associates, and even Sophie's school counselor. Apparently, I was now a controlling, emotionally abusive husband who was having some kind of breakdown. The first call came from my biggest client, Jim Morrison, who owned half the commercial properties in town. David, I got a call from Elizabeth yesterday. She's worried about you, says you've been acting erratically. Maybe you should take some time off, get some help. I was standing in his office looking at blueprints for a restaurant renovation that would keep my crew busy for 3 months. What kind of help, Jim? Professional help, counseling, therapy. Elizabeth mentioned some concerning behavior. Such as? Jim shifted uncomfortably. Recording private conversations, making threats, paranoid accusations. She's scared, David. I set down the blueprints and pulled out my phone. Jim, I want you to listen to something. I don't think... Please, as a friend. I played Elizabeth's recording, the one where she expressed such contempt for my blue-collar profession and our suburban life. Jim's face changed as he listened, the concern replaced by recognition. She said this to you? Tuesday night, right before she went to meet her boyfriend at the Riverside Inn. Jim sat heavily in his chair. David, I'm sorry. I had no idea. She's good at managing her image. Always has been. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes to protect my daughter and my reputation. The second call came from Sophie's school. Mrs. Henderson, the guidance counselor, wanted to discuss Sophie's home situation and offer resources for families in crisis. I arrived at the school that afternoon to find Elizabeth already there, tissues in hand, playing the concerned mother perfectly. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Henderson said as I entered her office. Thank you for coming. Your wife has shared some concerns about the family dynamic at home. I'm sure she has. I took the chair next to Elizabeth, noting how she instinctively shifted away from me. What concerns specifically? She's worried that your recent behavior might be affecting Sophie. Anger issues, erratic decision-making, possible substance abuse. I almost laughed. Substance abuse? Elizabeth spoke for the first time since I'd arrived. You've been drinking more lately, staying up all night, acting paranoid and suspicious. Have I? I turned to Mrs. Henderson. What has Sophie told you about my behavior? Well, she hasn't reported anything directly, but children often don't recognize concerning patterns. Because there aren't any concerning patterns. Sophie and I had dinner together last night, worked on her algebra homework, watched a movie. Did she seem distressed or frightened? Mrs. Henderson consulted her notes. No, but has Sophie's academic performance changed? Her social interactions? Any behavioral changes at all? Not that we've documented, but... Then what exactly are we discussing? Elizabeth leaned forward. David, please don't make this harder than it has to be. We're all trying to help. I pulled out my phone. Mrs. Henderson, I'd like you to hear something. It might provide some context for this conversation. Elizabeth went rigid. David, don't. Don't what? Don't provide evidence of what's actually happening in our home? I played the recording. Mrs. Henderson's expression shifted from concern to confusion to understanding as Elizabeth's voice filled the small office. When it finished, Mrs. Henderson looked between us. Mrs. Thompson, you didn't mention that you were exploring other relationships. That recording was taken without my consent and edited to make me sound... It's unedited, I interrupted. Complete metadata available if needed. Mrs. Henderson, my wife, is having an affair. Rather than address that honestly, she's trying to make me appear unstable to deflect attention from her own behavior. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. I think perhaps this is a matter for family court rather than the school counselor's office. Agreed. I stood. If Sophie exhibits any behavioral changes or seems distressed, please call me immediately. My number hasn't changed. Elizabeth followed me into the hallway. You can't keep humiliating me like this. I'm not humiliating you. I'm telling the truth. If that's humiliating, maybe you should consider why. I'm trying to protect our family. No, you're trying to protect yourself. There's a difference. That evening, I got a call from Ray, my old friend who owned Murphy's Bar downtown. Ray had been a boxer before he bought the bar, and he still had the scarred knuckles and crooked nose to prove it. Dave, you got a minute? I think you should know something. What's up? Your wife was in here tonight, with some pretty boy in an expensive suit. They were pretty cozy, if you know what I mean. I felt something cold settle in my chest. How cozy? Hand-holding, whispering, the works. They left together around 10. I checked the time. 10:30. Elizabeth had told Sophie she was working late on a brief. Ray, do me a favor. If they come in again, take some pictures, discreetly. You sure about that, Dave? Once you have pictures, there's no going back. There's already no going back. Friday morning arrived with a text from Elizabeth. Staying at Monica's until you're ready to discuss this rationally. I texted back, take all the time you need. Sophie found the note Elizabeth had left on the kitchen counter, explaining that Mommy needed some space to think about important decisions. Is this because of the problems you mentioned? Sophie asked over breakfast. Partly. Are you sad? I considered the question. Was I sad? Angry, certainly. Betrayed? Absolutely. But sad? I'm disappointed, I said finally. But not sad. Sometimes when something broken finally breaks completely, it's actually a relief. Sophie nodded with that serious expression she got when processing complex information. Like when my bike chain kept slipping, and you said it was better to replace it than keep fixing it. Exactly like that. So what happens now? Now we figure out what comes next. But first, I have some work to do. That afternoon, I drove to Jared's office. Morrison Real Estate occupied a gleaming storefront in the trendy part of downtown, all glass and chrome and motivational posters about success. Jared was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-20s, perfect hair, $1,000 suit, the kind of smile that came from a lifetime of getting what he wanted. He was showing a young couple around a model condo when I walked in. I'll be right with you, he called, not looking away from his clients. I waited, studying the awards on the wall, the photos of expensive properties, the carefully cultivated image of success and sophistication. Everything Elizabeth found attractive, everything she thought I lacked. When the couple left, Jared approached with his professional smile. Sorry about the wait. I'm Jared Mitchell. How can I help you today? I'm David Thompson, Elizabeth's husband. The smile faltered for just a moment before reasserting itself. Oh, hello. I thought we should meet, talk about the situation. Jared glanced around the office, probably checking for witnesses. I'm not sure what you mean. I pulled out my phone, showed him a photo Ray had texted me that morning, Jared and Elizabeth leaving Murphy's Bar together, her hand on his arm. I think you do. Jared's professional composure cracked slightly. Look, Mr. Thompson, I don't want any trouble. Neither do I. I just want to understand what you're thinking. What I'm thinking. You're sleeping with a married woman, a woman with a 14-year-old daughter. I'm curious about your thought process. Jared straightened, trying to reclaim some authority. Elizabeth told me your marriage was over, that you were separated. Did she? When did she tell you that? When we started spending time together. 3 months ago? He nodded. Interesting. Because 3 months ago, Elizabeth and I were planning our anniversary vacation. We booked the hotel together, made dinner reservations. Does that sound like a separated couple to you?" Jared's face went pale. "She said you were just keeping up appearances for your daughter." "She lied to you, Jared, just like she lied to me. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I need to talk to Elizabeth." "Good idea. While you're at it, you might want to ask her about her law school transcripts, and her bar exam scores, and whether her current employer knows about her creative relationship with the truth." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Jared, stay away from my family, all of my family." "Is that a threat?" I turned back, let him see exactly what I was thinking. "It's a promise." That evening, Sophie and I ordered pizza and watched old movies, falling into the kind of easy companionship that had been missing when Elizabeth's tension filled the house. Around 9, my phone buzzed with an angry text from Elizabeth. "What did you say to Jared?" I showed the text to Sophie. "Your mother wants to know what I said to her boyfriend." Sophie read it, her expression thoughtful. "Are you going to tell her?" "Oh, what do you think I should tell her? The truth?" "That's always been my plan." I texted back. "I told him the truth, something you might consider trying." The response came immediately. "You're destroying everything." "No," I typed. "I'm just refusing to help you hide it anymore." My phone rang. Elizabeth's number. "Don't answer it," Sophie said quietly. "Why not?" "Because she's not calling to apologize or fix things. She's calling because she's scared, and scared people say things they can't take back." Smart kid. I let it go to voicemail. Later, after Sophie went to bed, I listened to the message. Elizabeth's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "David, whatever game you think you're playing, it needs to stop. You're hurting innocent people, destroying relationships, acting like some kind of vigilante. This isn't you. The David I married would never be so cruel, so vindictive. Call me back. We need to fix this before it gets worse." I saved the message, added it to my growing collection of evidence. Elizabeth was right about one thing. This wasn't the David she married. That David had been naive, trusting, willing to make excuses for behavior that should have been inexcusable. This David was done making excuses. This David was just getting started. The weekend brought an unexpected visitor. I was in the garage organizing tools and trying to decide which belongings were mine and which belonged to the marriage, when Patricia's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Sophie was at Jessica's house again, which meant this conversation would be unfiltered. Patricia entered the garage like she was inspecting a crime scene, her expensive shoes clicking against the concrete floor. "David, we need to talk." "About?" "About what you're doing to my daughter." I continued sorting through a toolbox, giving her my full attention without making eye contact. "What am I doing to your daughter, Patricia?" "You're systematically destroying her reputation, her career, her relationships. This vendetta needs to stop." "Vendetta?" I looked up from a set of socket wrenches. I thought I was just sharing information." "You know exactly what you're doing. The recording, the bank statements, confronting Jared at his workplace, it's harassment. It's transparency. Something your daughter has struggled with lately." Patricia moved closer, her voice dropping to the tone she used when she wanted to intimidate people. "Elizabeth made a mistake. She's admitted that. But she's trying to fix things, trying to save her marriage, and you're making it impossible. She's trying to save her image. There's a difference." "What do you want, David? Money? A bigger settlement in the divorce? What will it take for you to stop this campaign?" I set down the tools and gave her my full attention. I want Elizabeth to experience consequences for her choices. I want Sophie to understand that actions have repercussions, and I want everyone to stop pretending that I'm the villain in this story. You're not a villain, but you're not innocent either. Marriages fail for many reasons. This marriage failed because your daughter decided she deserved better than the man who built a business to support her ambitions, who worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her law school, who spent 23 years believing her lies about love and partnership and commitment. Patricia's composure cracked slightly. "David, please." "Please what? Please pretend it never happened? Please let her rewrite history so she comes out looking like the victim? Please protect her from the natural consequences of her choices? Please think about Sophie. This public humiliation isn't helping anyone, especially not your daughter. Sophie is the only reason I haven't done worse." The words hung in the air between us. Patricia stepped back, perhaps recognizing something in my tone that suggested this conversation was over. "Elizabeth is staying at Monica's indefinitely," she said finally. "She wants to arrange a custody schedule for Sophie." "She can arrange whatever she wants. Sophie is old enough to decide where she wants to spend her time." "And if she chooses her mother?" I resumed organizing tools. "Then she chooses her mother. but she'll do it with full knowledge of why this family fell apart. Patricia left without another word. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from Monica. "David, can we meet? I think there are things you should know." Interesting. Monica had been Elizabeth's closest ally, her confidant and enabler. What could she possibly want to tell me? We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where Monica could maintain her image as a concerned friend trying to mediate a difficult situation. She looked tired, older than her 36 years, stress lines visible despite her expensive makeup. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, stirring sugar into her latte. "I know you probably see me as the enemy right now." "Are you?" "I hope not." She took a sip, gathering her thoughts. "David, there are things about Elizabeth's situation that you don't understand." "Such as?" "The affair with Jared. It's not her first." The coffee shop seemed to go quiet around us. "What?" "There have been others. Not many, but this pattern goes back years." I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. "How many years?" "The first one I knew about was maybe 5 years ago. A client at her firm. It lasted a few months, then ended when he transferred to another city. You knew and didn't tell me. She's my best friend. I was trying to protect her marriage, protect you from getting hurt unnecessarily. By letting me live a lie." Monica's eyes filled with tears. "I thought she would stop. I thought it was just a phase, some kind of midlife crisis. I kept hoping she would realize what she was risking and come to her senses. But she didn't. She got better at hiding it, more careful about the evidence, more creative with the excuses, until Jared." "What's different about Jared?" Monica hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "There's something else you need to see." She showed me a screenshot of a text conversation between her and Elizabeth from 2 weeks ago. Monica. "Are you sure about this? David's a good man. Sophie needs her family intact." Elizabeth. "David's been holding me back for years. I deserve better than a blue-collar husband who can't appreciate what I've accomplished. Jared understands my potential." Monica. "What about Sophie?" Elizabeth. "Sophie will adjust. Kids are resilient, and she'll be better off seeing her mother in a relationship with someone successful rather than watching me waste away in suburban mediocrity." I read it twice, memorizing every word. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I can't be part of it anymore. Because watching her destroy her family for someone like Jared makes me sick. And because—" She paused, wiping her eyes. "Because my own marriage is falling apart, and I realize I've been enabling the wrong person." "Your marriage?" "Tom found out I've been covering for Elizabeth. He's furious that I helped her lie to you, that I prioritized her secrets over basic decency. He's talking about separation." The irony was almost perfect. Monica's loyalty to Elizabeth was costing her own relationship. "What do you want from me, Monica?" "I want to help you. I have more screenshots, more evidence of what she's really been doing and thinking. I want to make sure Sophie knows the truth about why her family fell apart." I studied her face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. Why now? Why not 5 years ago, or 3 months ago, or last week? Because I finally understand that protecting Elizabeth means hurting everyone else, including Elizabeth herself. She needs to face consequences, or she'll keep doing this to other families, other men. "What kind of evidence?" Monica scrolled through her phone. Text conversations where she laughs about your pathetic attempts to be romantic. Photos from trips she took with other men while telling you she was at legal conferences. Financial records showing how she's been hiding money in accounts you don't know about. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. Hidden accounts? She's been preparing for this divorce longer than you think. Moving money, consulting lawyers, building a case that makes you look like an unfit father. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. "Show me." Monica spent the next hour walking me through months of evidence I'd never suspected. Elizabeth hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd been systematically planning the destruction of our marriage while pretending to work on saving it. The hidden bank account contained nearly $50,000, money transferred from our joint accounts in small amounts over the past year. The legal consultations had begun 6 months ago, long before her affair with Jared. The character assassination campaign against me had been carefully orchestrated, designed to make her look like the victim of an unstable husband. "She's been planning this for months," I said finally. "Years, actually. She's been building a case that you're emotionally abusive, financially controlling, possibly dangerous. The goal is full custody of Sophie and maximum alimony. Based on lies. Based on a carefully constructed narrative that makes her the victim and you the villain." I sat back, trying to process the scope of Elizabeth's deception. "Why are you telling me this now?" Because Tom made me realize that helping someone destroy their family doesn't make me a good friend. It makes me an accomplice. And because Sophie deserves better than having her life destroyed by her mother's selfishness. Monica slid a flash drive across the table. Everything's on here. Screenshots, financial records, even some audio recordings Elizabeth made of your arguments that she edited to make you sound threatening. I pocketed the drive. What happens now? Now you decide how far you're willing to go to protect your daughter and your reputation. And you? I'm going home to try to save my own marriage, and I'm going to stop being Elizabeth's enabler. That evening, Sophie and I sat in the living room, pizza boxes and homework scattered across the coffee table. She was working on an English essay about moral choices in literature, and I was reviewing the contents of Monica's flash drive on my laptop. Dad? Sophie looked up from her notebook. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you planning to hurt Mom? The question stopped me cold. What do you mean? I mean, are you going to try to get revenge on her? Make her pay for what she did? I closed the laptop, giving her my full attention. What makes you ask that? You've been different since all this started. Quieter, but also, I don't know, focused, like you're planning something. Smart kid. Too smart. I'm not planning to hurt your mother, Sophie, but I am planning to make sure people know the truth about what happened to our family. Even if the truth hurts her? Even then. Sophie considered this, chewing on her pencil eraser. In my English class, we're reading about characters who want revenge. Mrs. Patterson says revenge usually makes things worse, not better. What do you think? I think sometimes people need to face consequences for their choices, but I also think revenge can turn good people into bad people. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I promise you, Sophie, I will never become someone you can't be proud of, but I also won't let your mother rewrite history to make herself look innocent. Okay, she squeezed back. But Dad, whatever you're planning, just remember that I love you both, even if I don't understand why Mom did what she did. That night, after Sophie went to bed, I spent hours reviewing Monica's evidence. The scope of Elizabeth's deception was staggering. Not just the affairs, but the financial manipulation, the character assassination, the systematic planning to destroy me in any potential divorce proceedings. She'd been recording our arguments, editing them to remove context and make my responses sound threatening. She'd been documenting every minor disagreement, every moment of frustration, building a case that I was emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous. The hidden bank account was just the beginning. She'd been consulting with a forensic accountant to hide assets, with a private investigator to build a case against me, with a custody lawyer to ensure she got full control of Sophie. Elizabeth hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd been waging a war against me that I didn't even know was happening, but now I knew, and now I had evidence. The question was what to do with it. I thought about Sophie's essay on moral choices, about her concern that revenge could turn good people bad. She was right, of course. The desire for payback was seductive, but it could consume you if you weren't careful. But there was a difference between revenge and justice, between payback and consequences. Elizabeth had spent months planning my destruction while pretending to love me, pretending to work on our marriage, pretending to be the victim of my supposed instability. It was time for her to discover what actual instability looked like. It was time for the consequences to begin. Monday morning brought a phone call that changed everything. I was reviewing job estimates when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Thompson? This is Detective Sarah Martinez with the County Sheriff's Department. I need to ask you some questions about a complaint filed against you. My coffee went cold in my hand. What kind of complaint? Your wife has alleged that you've been stalking and harassing her, making threats and engaging in behavior that makes her fear for her safety. Can you come in this afternoon to discuss this? Elizabeth had escalated. The character assassination wasn't working fast enough, so she'd moved to criminal accusations. I'll be there at 2, I said. Bring a lawyer if you have one. After I hung up, I called Tom Bradley, the attorney who'd handled my business incorporation. Tom was straightforward, experienced, and had no connection to Elizabeth's legal circle. David, this is serious, he said after I explained the situation. False accusations of domestic violence can destroy your reputation even if they're eventually disproven. That's the point. Do you have any evidence to contradict her claims? I thought about Monica's flash drive, about the recordings and screenshots and financial documents. I have quite a bit of evidence, actually. We met at Tom's office an hour before the police interview. I walked him through everything, Elizabeth's affairs, the hidden assets, the edited recordings, Monica's revelations about the systematic planning. Tom's expression grew darker as I presented each piece of evidence. David, your wife isn't just having an affair. She's been planning to frame you for domestic abuse. I know. These edited recordings, the financial manipulation, the coordination with her friend, this is conspiracy. This is fraud. What do we do about it? Tom leaned back in his chair. We go on offense, but first, we deal with this police complaint. The sheriff's department was a low brick building that smelled like coffee and bureaucracy. Detective Martinez was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and the manner of someone who'd heard every story twice. Mr. Thompson, your wife claims you've been following her, recording her without consent, harassing her friends and coworkers, and making veiled threats about what you might do if she doesn't return home. Tom answered before I could speak. Detective, my client has evidence that Mrs. Thompson has been engaged in a systematic campaign to defraud him financially and destroy his reputation through false accusations. That's a separate matter. Right now, I'm investigating claims of stalking and harassment. I pulled out my phone. Detective, would you like to hear what Mrs. Thompson actually said about her marriage? In her own words, before she decided I was dangerous? I played Elizabeth's original recording, the one where she expressed contempt for our marriage and admitted to exploring other options. Detective Martinez listened without expression. This was recorded in your own home? In our bedroom, during a conversation about her affair. And you've shared this recording with other people? With her mother and her best friend, yes. Without her consent? Tom intervened again. Detective, the recording was made legally in my client's own home during a conversation about his wife's adultery. Sharing evidence of infidelity with family members is not harassment. Detective Martinez made notes. What about following her to restaurants and hotels? I haven't followed her anywhere. I have bank statements showing charges to locations I've never been to, and I've received photographs from concerned friends who recognized her with another man. I showed her the photos Ray had taken at Murphy's bar, the bank statements with hotel charges, the credit card bills for lingerie and expensive dinners. Mrs. Thompson claims you confronted her boyfriend at his workplace and threatened him. I introduced myself and asked him about his relationship with my married wife. I told him to stay away from my family. I didn't threaten violence. What exactly did you say to him? I thought carefully. I told him that Elizabeth had lied to him about our marriage being over. I suggested he ask her about her history of dishonesty, and I told him to stay away from my family. He claims you implied you would harm him if he didn't end the relationship. He's lying, just like Elizabeth is lying about being afraid of me. Tom placed a folder on Detective Martinez's desk. Detective, we have evidence that Mrs. Thompson has been planning this campaign for months. Hidden bank accounts, edited audio recordings designed to make my client appear threatening, consultations with divorce attorneys going back 6 months, all while pretending to work on saving the marriage. Detective Martinez opened the folder, scanning the documents. Her expression shifted as she reviewed Monica's evidence. Where did you get these screenshots and recordings? From Mrs. Thompson's best friend, who became concerned about the scope of the deception and the impact on the couple's teenage daughter. The detective spent several minutes reviewing the evidence. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to close this complaint for lack of evidence. Mrs. Thompson, your wife may want to reconsider her strategy here. What does that mean? It means filing false police reports is a crime, and based on what I'm seeing here, she might want to focus on her own legal exposure rather than making accusations against you. Tom and I left the sheriff's department with a written statement that the harassment complaint had been investigated and found to be without merit. It wasn't much, but it was something. What's our next move? I asked as we sat in Tom's car. We go nuclear. We file for divorce, seek full custody based on her financial deception and character fraud, and we make sure every piece of evidence gets presented in open court. What about Sophie? Sophie's 14. In this state, the court will consider her preference for custody arrangements. And given what her mother has been planning, Sophie might be safer with you anyway. That evening, I sat Sophie down for the most difficult conversation of our relationship. Sophie, I need to tell you some things about what's been happening between your mother and me. Some of it's going to be hard to hear. She set down her homework, giving me her full attention. Okay. I walked her through the basics, the affairs, the hidden money, the plan to make me look dangerous in order to win custody and financial support. Sophie listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious as I explained each revelation. Mom was planning to take me away from you? She asked finally. She was planning to make it look like I was dangerous so the court would give her full custody. But you're not dangerous. No, I'm not. But she was building a case that would be hard to disprove. Sophie was quiet for a long time, processing everything. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you going to try to take me away from Mom? No. I'm going to ask the court to let you choose where you want to live and how much time you want to spend with each of us. And if I choose you, then you choose me. And if I choose Mom, then you choose Mom. But Sophie, whatever you choose, it should be based on the truth about what happened here, not on lies designed to make one parent look better than the other. She nodded slowly. I understand. Do you have questions about any of this? Just one. Are you going to forgive her? The question caught me off guard. I don't know, maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending something didn't happen. And it doesn't mean there aren't consequences? Right. Sophie picked up her pencil, then set it down again. Dad, I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm proud of you for telling me the truth, even though it's hard to hear. Thank you, sweetheart. And Dad, I want to stay with you, not because I don't love Mom, but because I need to be with the parent who tells me the truth. That night, after Sophie went to bed, I called Elizabeth. She answered on the first ring. David, thank goodness. Detective Martinez said you came in today. I hope you understand now how serious the situation has become. I understand perfectly. Good. If you're ready to discuss this rationally, I think we can work something out. Drop the recordings, stop harassing Jared, and we can go to counseling. Elizabeth, stop talking. What? I know about the hidden bank account. I know about the edited recordings. I know about your consultations with divorce lawyers 6 months ago. I know about the other affairs. I know everything. Silence on her end. Monica told me everything. She gave me copies of your text messages, your financial records, your entire plan to destroy me and take Sophie. David, I can explain. No explanations. No more lies. Tomorrow morning, my lawyer is filing for divorce. We're seeking full custody based on your financial fraud and character deception. Every piece of evidence will be presented in open court, including your plan to falsely accuse me of domestic violence. You can't. I can. And I will. You wanted to play games, Elizabeth. You wanted to destroy my reputation and steal my daughter. Now you get to discover what happens when someone fights back. Please, David, think about Sophie. I am thinking about Sophie. I'm thinking about what happens to a 14-year-old girl whose mother tried to frame her father for domestic abuse in order to win a custody battle. You did. It's all documented. Screenshots, recordings, financial records. Everything you plan to do to me is about to happen to you. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. But tonight, for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. The truth was finally going to come out. The divorce papers were filed Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, Elizabeth's entire world was collapsing in real time. Tom had been thorough. The filing included every piece of evidence Monica had provided, plus additional documentation my own investigation had uncovered: hidden bank accounts, falsified expense reports, edited audio recordings, text messages laughing about my pathetic romantic gestures, all of it laid out in legal language that left no room for interpretation. But the real masterstroke was the timing. Tom had coordinated the filing with a complaint to the State Bar Association regarding Elizabeth's professional conduct, and a notification to her employer about potential ethics violations. My phone started ringing around noon. First Patricia, then Monica, then numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The only call I answered was from Sophie's school. Mrs. Henderson again, but this time her tone was different. Mr. Thompson, I wanted to apologize for our previous meeting. I've received some additional information that puts your family situation in a different light. What kind of information? Your wife contacted the school this morning, requesting immediate transfer of Sophie's records to a private school across town. When we asked Sophie about it during lunch, she became very upset and asked us to call you. I was already reaching for my keys. Is she okay? She's fine, but she's confused and scared. She says her mother told her this morning that they were moving away, that it wasn't safe to stay in the same town as you. I'll be right there. I found Sophie in Mrs. Henderson's office, her backpack clutched in her lap and tears in her eyes. Dad, Mom came to school this morning. She said we had to leave town, that you were dangerous, and the police couldn't protect us. She wanted me to come with her right now. I knelt beside her chair. What did you tell her? I told her I wanted to call you first. She got really angry and said there wasn't time, that we had to leave immediately. Mrs. Henderson made her wait in the main office while I decided what to do. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. Mr. Thompson, your wife is still in the building. She's demanding that we release Sophie to her custody immediately. What are the legal requirements? Both parents have equal custody rights until a court order says otherwise. But Sophie is old enough to express a preference, and she's clearly distressed about leaving with her mother right now. I looked at Sophie. What do you want to do? I want to go home with you. I don't want to leave town, leave my school, leave my friends, and I don't understand why Mom is saying you're dangerous when you've never hurt anyone. Mrs. Henderson made a note in Sophie's file. I'll document Sophie's preference and her emotional state. That should provide some protection if this becomes a custody issue. Elizabeth was waiting in the main office, pacing like a caged animal. She looked up when Sophie and I entered, her face cycling through relief, anger, and desperation. Sophie, sweetheart, we need to go. I've found us a beautiful apartment across town near a wonderful school. You'll love it. Sophie stayed close to my side. Mom, I don't want to move. I want to stay with Dad. Honey, your father has been lying to you about our situation. He's not the man you think he is. Neither are you, Sophie said quietly. Elizabeth's face went white. What did he tell you? He told me the truth. About the affairs, about the money you hid, about your plan to make him look dangerous so you could take me away. Sophie, those are lies. No, Mom, they're not. Sophie's voice was steady, older than her 14 years. I've seen the evidence. I've heard the recordings. I know what you really think about Dad and our family. Elizabeth looked at me with pure hatred. You turned my own daughter against me. I told her the truth, something you might have tried. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Henderson interrupted. Perhaps this conversation would be better continued elsewhere. Sophie has been through enough stress for one day. Elizabeth made one last attempt. Sophie, please. I'm your mother. I love you. I'm trying to protect you. From what, Mom? From the man who makes me breakfast every morning, helps with my homework, and never lies to me. From a man who's been systematically destroying my life for the past 2 weeks. Sophie looked at her mother with something that might have been pity. Mom, you destroyed your own life. Dad just stopped helping you hide it. We left Elizabeth standing in the school office, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Sophie was quiet during the drive home, processing everything that had happened. Dad, is Mom going to be okay? Eventually, but she's going to have to face some consequences first. Good, Sophie said, surprising me with her vehemence. She should face consequences. What she did was wrong. That evening, Tom called with an update. Elizabeth's lawyer contacted me this afternoon. They want to negotiate. What kind of negotiation? They're offering to accept a 50-50 custody arrangement and equal division of assets if you agree to seal the court records and drop the Bar Association complaint. What did you tell them? I told them we'd consider it if Elizabeth publicly admits to the affairs, returns all the hidden money, and agrees to Sophie choosing her primary residence. And? They said they'd get back to me. At 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. Elizabeth stood on the porch, looking smaller somehow, diminished. Can we talk? I let her in, but we stayed in the foyer. Sophie was upstairs doing homework, and I didn't want this conversation happening anywhere near her. David, I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Elizabeth. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. I made mistakes. I know that. But this public humiliation, this destruction of my career, my reputation, it's not just hurting me, it's hurting Sophie, too. Sophie seems to be handling the truth better than you're handling the consequences. Elizabeth's composure cracked. Please, I'm begging you. I'll end things with Jared. I'll return the money. I'll do whatever you want. Just stop this campaign to destroy me. It's not a campaign, Elizabeth. It's just the truth finally coming out. The truth doesn't have to be public. We can handle this privately, work things out between ourselves. Like we were working things out while you were planning to frame me for domestic abuse? She flinched. I never would have gone through with that. You filed a false police report yesterday. I was scared, desperate. I wasn't thinking clearly. I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse. What do you want, Elizabeth? I want my daughter back. I want a chance to rebuild our relationship without all this poison between us. Then start by taking responsibility for what you did, not just to me, but to Sophie. Stop trying to make yourself the victim. And if I do that, if I admit everything, take full responsibility, will you stop the public humiliation? I'll consider it. But Elizabeth, the damage is done. You can't unring this bell. I have to try. She left without seeing Sophie, who had been listening from the top of the stairs. Do you think she means it? Sophie asked, coming down to join me. I think she's scared and desperate. Whether that translates to genuine change remains to be seen. Are you going to give her another chance? I considered the question. I'm going to give her a chance to prove she's learned something from this. But Sophie, our marriage is over. That's not changing. I know. I just want her to be honest for once. The next morning brought a surprise. Elizabeth's lawyer called Tom to schedule a meeting, but not to negotiate terms. She wants to make a public statement, Tom told me. Full admission of responsibility, public apology, agreement to all your custody and financial terms. What's the catch? No catch. She's apparently realized that fighting this will only make things worse. Or she's planning something else. Maybe. But David, if she's genuinely ready to take responsibility, this could be the best outcome for everyone, especially Sophie. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon at Tom's office. Elizabeth arrived with her lawyer, a tired-looking man who seemed eager to get this over with. Elizabeth had prepared a written statement. She read it aloud, her voice steady but her hands shaking. I, Elizabeth Thompson, want to publicly acknowledge that I have been unfaithful to my husband David throughout our marriage. I have had multiple affairs, hidden assets from our joint accounts, and attempted to manipulate legal and social systems to avoid responsibility for my actions. I have lied to my family, my friends, and myself about the nature of my behavior and my husband's character. David Thompson has never been abusive, controlling, or dangerous. He is a good man and a devoted father who deserved better than the wife I chose to be. I take full responsibility for the destruction of our marriage and family, and I apologize to everyone who has been hurt by my selfishness and dishonesty. She signed the statement, had it notarized, and handed copies to both lawyers. There, she said quietly. Is that enough truth for you? I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 23 years, trying to reconcile this broken person with the confident, ambitious lawyer I'd fallen in love with. It's a start, I said finally. Elizabeth nodded, gathered her purse, and walked out of Tom's office. I never saw her again. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Sophie chose to live with me full-time, with alternating weekend visits to Elizabeth's new apartment across town. The hidden money was returned, the assets divided equally, and the court records remained sealed at Sophie's request. Elizabeth left her law firm, left town, and eventually left the state. Sophie gets postcards occasionally, brief messages that suggest her mother is trying to rebuild her life somewhere else. Jared's real estate career ended when his employer learned about his relationship with a married client. He moved back to his hometown, presumably to start over with a clean slate. Monica and her husband worked through their problems, though their friendship with Elizabeth didn't survive the revelations. As for me, I kept my business, kept my house, and kept my daughter. Sophie thrived without the tension and dishonesty that had poisoned our home, and our relationship grew stronger as she learned to trust that I would always tell her the truth, even when it was difficult to hear. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the man I was before Elizabeth's recording, before I learned the scope of her deception. That man was naive, trusting, willing to make excuses for inexcusable behavior. This man knows better. This man understands that sometimes the only way to save what matters is to stop protecting people from the consequences of their choices. This man learned that the truth, however painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and Sophie is asleep, I listen to that original recording one more time, not out of anger or bitterness, but as a reminder of the moment when everything changed, when I stopped being the victim of someone else's story and started writing my own. The truth had set us all free, even Elizabeth, though it took her longer to realize it. In the end, that's all any of us can ask for. The freedom that comes from facing the truth, however much it hurts. The rest is just details.